What's going on, everybody? How we doing today? Are you excited? The holidays are here. Turkey and stuffing still in our bellies, maybe. It's funny how those things just like to linger a little longer right around here. We're in a unique season, aren't we? We're right in between all these major holidays, and maybe many of you have had family fly into town. I've had family in the whole month of November. And the funny thing about holidays and family is you're reminded about things about your character that you forgot about. You know, that's like the opportunity that we get with family get-togethers. You know, you learn that you put the spices in the wrong cabinet when your family's in town. I remember, my mom reminded me of something too. She was in earlier this month, and I kept asking her, Mom, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to go to the movies? Do you want to go out to eat? Mom, do you want to go for a hike? What do you want to do? My mom is so sweet, you guys. I forget this because I've been here in the Northwest for the last 8 years, so it's been some time away from my mom. But she just told me, Hijo, in her beautiful Spanish, Hijo, I just want to be with you. And it's so sweet. I love it. And I'm reminded, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm such a busy person. I pack in so many things into time because I feel like the more that we do, the closer we get. Are any of you else like that? Like, we had all these experiences and I got to capture it on social media and I got to do all this stuff. And so when family comes in, I'm reminded of aspects of my character that I'm blind to. And as we're looking at a unique season, I wanted to look at the life of Jesus, but from a different lens. I wanted to look at the life of Jesus from someone who grew up with Jesus, who maybe looked up to Jesus, who was related to Jesus, but saw him in a unique light. And I was thinking about Jesus' half-brother James, who wrote the Epistle of James. So I'm like, that guy must have had a unique point of view into the life of Jesus. And what are the things that James walked away with after having grown up with Jesus and seeing him crucified and resurrected and all these things? What are the things that cemented into his mind? And those are the things that we're going to explore here today. So with your Bibles open to James chapter 1, verse 12, we're going to look at a message entitled A Season to Be. A season to be. And as this theme repeats throughout our study, I want you to be thinking about my mom's words in your ear. Hijo, I just want to be with you. Okay? Just have that resonate in your mind, because I believe that echoes the heart of God for us. So we're going to be in James chapter 1, verse 12, as we learn the keys of what it is to be in this unique season. So verse 12 through 15 read this way. They see this way. Blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then, when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. Go ahead and just underline that. Sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. One of the first things that James took away from observing Jesus live his life is that he realized that in whatever season of life you're in, you can be blessed. That you could experience a blessing. That's where we get our first point in verse 12, is James is saying, you can be blessed in whatever season, however unique it is, amen? You can be blessed in whatever season, but there's a connection to it. Did you catch that in verse 1? You are blessed when you endure temptation. The word endure there in the original Greek means resist consistently. Like if for those of you who are getting ready in the new year to start your workout routine, I love how so many of us were I'm just gonna suffer through December, but come January 1st, that's when I'm gonna lock in. I'm gonna waste all of December, but come January, that's really where I'm gonna dial it in, which is funny because it flies in the face of the wisdom that anything worth doing tomorrow is probably worth doing today, right? And that's what this word endure means, resistance training, consistently over time. James is saying, from what I've observed in the life of Jesus, you're actually blessed in any season when you endure, when you resist temptation. The blessing that is promised to you in verse 12, you get to receive the crown of life. And the crown of life is referred to not only here in verse 12, but also in Revelation 2:10. It's referred to often in church history as the martyr's crown. It's special designation, recognition. When we stand before Christ in all eternity, it's a promise, it's a distinction, it's beautiful, but it's also symbolic of the wreaths that would be given in athletic competitions in this culture. It helped you stand out. It showed others that there was a grit, a resilience to your character and devotion to God. It means that, it actually means that not only did you endure temptation, but you lived a life that was set apart for Christ. To resist temptation in and of itself is its own blessing in whatever season you find yourself in. Now, keep going with us. In verse 14, it says, verse 13, let no one say when he is tempted, I'm tempted by God. Have you done that? I've done that. Lord, why do you be tempting me with all these donut places on the way to work? You're killing me, Lord, why are you tempting me with these Black Friday deals? You know I need a new Ryobi battery for a tool I never use. I don't even know the name of, Lord. Gosh, we all do it. We all do it. But what James is saying is look, from what I observed in the life of Jesus, he knew that God didn't tempt us. Jesus taught James through his life that actually every individual is tempted by himself because God doesn't tempt you. He says, verse 14, each one is tempted when he is drawn away. In the original Greek, that word drawn away means that you're literally dragged away. It doesn't mean you drift away. It means that there's actual forces intentionally tugging at you, grasping for your attention and your affection, ripping you away from the life that you want to lead for Jesus. There's a force, an opposite force, trying to pull you away. You're being dragged away. Verse 15, then when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. There's a thing about desiring and temptation. And a lot of us are like, yeah, but what is temptation and what does it mean and how does it apply to my life? Well, let me tell you what it isn't. Temptation isn't being drawn to something that you detest, okay? It's not gonna be something you hate. That's not temptation. To illustrate this, I realized this a couple weeks ago. I walked into a coworker's office, and I don't wanna embarrass her at all, except she has really good fashion sense, great hair. She sings on the worship team. Her name rhymes with Matasha, but I'm not gonna out her, because that's like a low bar. I don't wanna, but I walked into her office, and on her desk is a giant bag of black licorice. Many of you are not tempted by black licorice, is that what I gather? No, there's nothing that would tempt me about black licorice. Now, she informed me that she's European and that flavor profile is like something that they like in her family. So I get it. And listen, I am not one to judge. Because being Mexican American, there are parts of a cow that I would put in a taco that would give you all nightmares, okay? It's not fit for church. I cannot talk about it here. But there are things we put around a flour tortilla that would give you guys nightmares. So I get it. Temptation's never gonna be anything that you're disgusted by. It's gonna be something that you are enticed towards. This is how Satan works. James is going to go on to give you some more insight about this, but before we go to James, I want to read for you 1 Corinthians 10:13. It's so powerful. 1 Corinthians 10:13 is Paul writing to a church that had given themselves over to sexual temptation. And he wants to educate them. It's like, listen, we need to talk about what temptation is. I need to set the record straight. And in 1 Corinthians 10:13, he writes this, listen, no temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to all men. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will also make the way of escape that you may be able to bear it. There was a season in my life when I wasn't walking with the Lord, and the way kind of like a spiritual advisor explained to me it back then is he said, Gabe, you have too much of the church to enjoy the world, but you have too much of the world to enjoy church. And so there was that season where I was in there, and you know, depending on where you are, you find yourself drifting in and out of that season, that unique season. But in that season, I remember thinking that I uniquely was too far away from the grace of God. I lost sight of this verse that no temptation has come upon you that isn't common to everybody. I thought I had discovered a new way to sin that Jesus couldn't forgive. And listen, the moment you begin to think that in your life, you're not listening to your Savior, you're listening to an accuser. You're listening to Satan, who makes you think that you are outside of God's grace, that God is disgusted by you, that his grace is not enough for you, that you've sinned, you've discovered, you're so creative, you're so unique that the thing that you have done is outside of God's reach for you. No temptation has come upon you that isn't common to everybody. What you're struggling with here today, don't allow Satan to separate you and isolate you by accusing you. Rather, allow the Savior to draw you deeper into community and to say, yes, I surrender, Lord, I give up. I've wrestled with this for too long. Elsewhere, we read in John, a follower of Jesus, a close friend of Jesus, 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 and 17 says, do not love the world or the things in the world, for if anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, it is not of the Father, but it is of this world. And the world, listen to this, the world is passing away and the lust of it, but he who does the will of God abides forever. Some of you might be here today and you're like, I don't know, I think God's tempting me. And maybe we need a new word and a fresh word for that. Because remember, we can be blessed in whatever season if we resist temptation. Maybe God isn't tempting you, but perhaps God is testing you. And brothers and sisters, if you feel like you have to keep retaking the test, it's because you never learned the lesson. That make sense? If it feels like you just keep taking the same test over and over and over again, it's quite possibly because you've never learned the lesson. And can I give you the answer? I love spoilers. My friend's like, you spoil everything. Don't tell me anything. You can't give gifts. You ruin endings. I'm just like that. I'm so sorry. Let me spoil it for you. The answer to every test, okay? The answer to every test you're ever going to take in your relationship with Jesus is surrender. It's giving up, is saying, Jesus, I am powerless against this, Lord. I give it up to you. I give it over to you. I hand this over to you. I remember as a kid growing up, there was, and this might be dating me, so I apologize, but I remember playing, there's this particular level in the very first Super Mario game on the original NES. There's this one level that I would play over and over and over and over again. This is before unlimited continues and like any of that like modern conveniences that spoiled kids have nowadays. I'm not judging. I'm just stating facts, just facts. And I would play this level over and over again. I would slam my remote. Were you one of those rage kids that would like slam the controller? I would get so mad. And my buddy, Bobby Lane, who lived down the road and across the street, he had the NES like 3 months before me. And so he had mastered Mario Brothers. He could play it. So you know how you hold the remote? Like, this is a side note, by the way. This does not add to the sermon. This is just seasoning, okay? This is just seasoning. You know how you hold the remote like this? Bobby could play it inverted. He could play Mario Brothers like this, with the remote control like this. And so there was a time where I got so mad, so irate, like my blood pressure as a 12-year-old was through the roof, the blood pressure of an 80-year-old man at 12 years old. And finally, I just got so frustrated, and I would take the remote by the cord, and I would just go like this. And I would hand it over to Bobby Lane. And Bobby would just take over and be like, you done now? You want to beat this now for you? Picture that. That is what it is to surrender. That is how you pass the test. That is how you learn the lesson. It's to say, I'm done. I'm done. I'm so frustrated. I've broken 3 remotes, whatever. I'm hating life right now. Dude, just take this. That's what the answer is to surrender. So what is it that you're struggling with? Maybe you love to have the last word in every argument. Like you're good at it. I have the opposite effect. I have the best comeback 17 seconds after the argument. I have like the goated response. Like you could tweet it. It's so well packaged and just, it's so good, but 17 seconds later. But maybe for you, you're really good at the last word. What would it be like if you just surrendered that? Maybe for you, you need a bottle of wine to fall asleep at night. Huh? What would it look like if you just said, I surrender that? Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a person that you've put in the place of Jesus. And week in and week out, that person consistently disappoints you and lets you down. It's because they were never meant to be lifted up in the first place. And to surrender that is to take it by the remote control cord and to just say, Lord, here you go, you take it. That's what it practically looks like. But you guys, sin and temptation is so desirous to us. Like we just love it. We're drawn to it. It pulls us. And another illustration of this, earlier in the year, there was a documentary that came out called Chimp Crazy. No one saw it. Okay. I thought that was in my head, I imagined an uproar and be like, yes, Pastor Gabe, yeah, reference. Let me break it down for you. It's this documentary about these people who raise wild animals, specifically chimpanzees, okay? It's crazy. And there are so many instances in this thing where these people take this cute little chimp. They're so cute. And they play with it and they, pet its head and they put little baby chimp diapers on it. And they're like, you're so cute. And they bottle feed it. And it's so cute. But spoiler alert, I love spoiling things. By the end of the season, like these animals become so big and they are extremely dangerous. So many of them have to be put down. They turn on their owners. They attack their owners. One lady was even killed. Her neighbor was killed. It's a crazy documentary. Don't watch it. It's nightmare fuel. Okay, don't watch it. But in this thing, the main character says this, and it so speaks to the heart of how we view the things that we desire that aren't pleasing to God. She writes, I would give up anything for my chimp. Chimps are my whole thing, she says, because you can shape them into being you. I mean, I went to public school, so I'm sure like a smarter person, like the psychology there is deep. What we do with dangerous things. How many of us treat sin that way? Like we frown on this woman with this chimp, right? Like, lady, how are you playing with that? Aren't you crazy? Don't you know it's gonna grow up and devour you? But so many of us entertain relationships that are disastrous. Obsessions. So many of us visit web pages that have a full-grown, just destructive effect in our hearts and our lives of relationships. I heard it this way, that addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Addiction is giving up everything for one thing. But recovery is giving up one thing and you get everything. You get everything back. Is this not the original sin in the garden? Where the Lord says to Adam and Eve, you could have all these things. It's beautiful. Go swim in that river. You want to swim in that river? You want to go name that llama? Go name that llama. You can do whatever you want. The only thing, just don't go near this tree, all right? And what's the very first thing that Adam and Eve did? Yeah, they were drawn to the one thing. They gave up everything for one thing. If we're gonna experience a blessing in every season, we have to resist temptation. And the way you resist temptation, surrender control to God. Give him the remote control. Say, Lord, take this over. Now, James goes on to give you another insight. If you want to experience blessing in whatever season you're in verse 16, he says, do not be deceived. The original word there means misled. So there's an intention behind it. My brethren, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there's no variation or shadow of turning. We're going to break that apart here in a moment. Of his own will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. So then, my beloved brethren, let every man, here's a list for you if you love lists like I do, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath, for the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. So if point one is be blessed, point number two is don't be deceived. Verse 16, don't be misled. James is giving you a warning. He's like, guys, your propensity, my propensity, all of us, we can be easily misled, dragged away not only by our own desires, but there's a very real enemy out in the world actively working to misinform and mislead you. I think the church has a lot of work to do. I think we have a lot of work to do in cultivating an active awareness of the power of lies. I think a lie can derail you in a faith much faster than a lot of other things that we think are dangerous. I think too many of us have accepted a lie and exchanged that for the truth that God offers. That's why Jesus says, I want to be worshiped in spirit and in truth, because lies have a real power in our lives. So he said, don't be deceived, my brethren. Every good and perfect gift. There's that qualifier. Why? I think James is saying every good gift, strike that, every perfect gift, right? He adds that. Why? Because I think for a lot of us, Satan is happy to bless you in order to pacify you. You ever seen a desperate parent in the grocery store when their kid is freaking out? I was that parent. And you don't know what to do, and they're losing it because they want something, and you know, you love your child, you want to do well, you don't want to harm them, but you also want to keep them quiet because there's like eyes all over you, and so you reach in your pockets for the very first thing, and you're like, I don't know, take this, and you give it like keys, which are like the dirtiest thing that I can imagine, right? It'll keep your child quiet, but it isn't good and perfect. Satan is very happy to bless you in order to pacify you. But his gifts aren't perfect. They might appear good, but they're not perfect. And so James is encouraging, listen, focus on the Father of lights. Now this is really, really cool. This whole no shadow of turning, this is beautiful. The Father of lights. In the original language, it could read, the Father of the light. Speaking of the Son, the S-U-N. So he's saying, in the Father of the lights, you guys are called to live in his light. Now think about this astronomically, like zoom out. Here, I hope this makes sense. When it is dark in our hemisphere, it's not because the sun has stopped shining. It's because the earth has turned away from the light from the sun. Do you see that? The example that James is saying is like, don't be deceived, don't be misled, be a child of the light. Have your face consistently set on the light of the Father of lights. Don't be like the earth that rotates away and embraces darkness, but do everything that you can to remain in his light. For some of you, that might look like having worship nonstop. I'm not saying legalistically all you listen to is Christian music. I'm not saying legalistically all you do is watch Christian movies, but some of you might have to. You have to fight like heaven to resist hell. You have to do what you can to abide in his light, or else you, me, I, all of us, we can be deceived. Don't be like the earth which rotates away from the sun, but embrace his light, because in his light there is no shifting of shadow, no variation, no turning. You are his first fruits. This goes way deep into Jewish culture. We don't have time to get into the significance of first fruits. I wish we did, but because I want to get to this list right here, because this list is so awesome. Isn't this just great wisdom? A lot of people call this part of James like a lost beatitude. Remember Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, all those things that we should be in order to be blessed? Some people would consider this like part that maybe James heard that he held near and dear to his heart. This part is so cool. Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. And then he doubles down on wrath. He says, for the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Another thing I learned about myself this past holiday when I had family into town, I don't know if you guys are like me. Do you guys ever like come home super stressed and the kitchen is dirty and then you just start rage cleaning? Does anyone else rage clean? Like you're too prideful to ask for help, so you think that if you start slamming things and closing the cupboards and angrily sweeping. Like you think that though that wrath might inspire and solicit help? Is anyone else like that? Okay, good. Rage cleaners, unite. Woo. Yeah, I'm totally like that. It drives me nuts. But that's this idea that through my anger, I can get people to live righteously for God. How often we do this in judgment of others, right? Don't be a rage cleaner. Don't do that. Don't be like me, be like Jesus. Don't be deceived. Be swift to hear, meaning you listen to God's voice. You tune in to what he has for you. Slow to speak. This word wrath is so cool too, and this is worth mentioning, I think, especially in this unique season. In the original language here, there are 3 words that all share the same etymology. So this word wrath is used twice in this section. The word wrath also has the same origin point as the word for wreath. The wreaths that we put on our doors and decorate during Christmas time, the wreath. And then there's one more word that's connected to wrath and wreath. It's this word wraith. Now, wraith is kind of dated. It's antiquated. We don't use it. But it's a word for a ghost or a spirit, a tortured spirit. But if you combine all those, the word picture is very vivid, isn't it? When we're given over to wrath, we are twisted around ourselves in a circular pattern. We repeat a cycle. And not only are we twisted and put in this endless loop, in this endless cycle, but we also become wraiths of our former selves. Tortured, disembodied spirits. Not bringing life to anything. Don't give yourself over to wrath. Doesn't mean never be angry. The Bible has a lot to say about anger, that there's a way to actually be righteously angry. But wrath is uncontrollable. It's volatile. It spills over. You hurt the people around you. And then no one's going to want to help you clean the kitchen. This is bad. It's bad business. Don't do it. It's bad. All right. The last part, you guys are doing great. We'll bring our time together to a close. Verses 21 through 27. Therefore, lay aside all filthiness and overflow of wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word which is able to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he's like a man observing his natural face in a mirror. For he observes himself, but then he goes away, and he immediately forgets what kind of man he was. But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this one will be blessed in what he does. If anyone among you thinks he's religious and doesn't even bridle his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this one's religion, it's useless. Pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their trouble, and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. In whatever season we are in, we're called to be blessed. We're called to not be deceived. And then point number 3, we're called to be doers of the word. We're called to be doers. I think we all need to do less sermon admiration and probably more sermon application, right? You're like, yeah, but I just need to hear another word on how to be nice to my spouse. I just need to do like a Bible study on how to be nice because I don't quite get it. I think I need to study the Greek to understand how I should treat people. And you're like, and the Lord's just like, oh my gosh, come on, dude. You don't need another sermon. You need to apply what you've heard. It's the same for you and for me. We have to be doers of the word. He gives a very vivid example here on what real religion is. And it doesn't just mean that like, if you only help orphans and widows, that's the only stuff that count. I think what that means is we serve people who have nothing to offer us in return. I think what James is getting at is he's like, look, I observed the life of my older half-brother. These are the things that he did, and these are the things I'm trying to do. And at the time when James wrote this, life was tumultuous. The governments were chaotic. Households were divided. The economy was unsure. Peace was some thought, but very fragile. But I ask you, brothers and sisters, what has changed in the last 2,000 years? Nothing's changed. Those variables are still very much alive here today. But we have a choice. We have a choice to be blessed by not being deceived and by being doers of the word of God. Obey what you know, friends. Obey. And some of you might be sitting here today and they're like, yeah, but Pastor Gabe, I haven't really heard from God and I'm waiting on a word in order to do this or do that. And my question to you is, what was the last thing Jesus asked you to do, and did you do it? If you haven't received point 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, did you go back and obey point 1? Because God's not going to repeat himself. He wants you to experience his blessing, but there's a intentionality required on your part. It's time to be with him. It's time to simply be with him and resist the urge to do for God. Like, Lord, look at everything I accomplished. Look at I. I think when we are focused on doing for God, we make a lot of I statements, right? I read my Bible today. I listened to worship. I prayed. I served at church. I went to church. I gave. I tithed. I was at small group. I. When our focus is on everything that we do for God, we make a lot of those kind of statements. But like when my mom says, hijo, I just want to be with you. Hijo, if you didn't know, means son. When we be with God, when we abide, as the way Pastor Mikey was singing, when we abide with Jesus, we make a lot of he is statements. He is good. He's beautiful. He's faithful. He's consistent. He is with me. He keeps me. He cleanses me. He abides with me. He loves me. He is for me. He is not against me. Pay attention to how you talk about God. Amen? With your eyes closed and your heads bowed, I'd love to encourage you to pray with me. Lord, we thank you for our time together here today. We want to be with you. We want to be with you. We want to abide with you. Lord, forgive us. Forgive me for the times where I allow anger to take over. Lord, for the things that I struggle with the cute little chimps of the world of my life that I think are cute now that are going to grow up one day and devour me. Lord, cleanse me and cleanse us of these things. We want to be with you. So Lord, remove anything that gets in the way of that. Purify our hearts, set us apart.